Thank you very much, everyone. And I really appreciate some of you making it here because I know there have been 400 plus events and just you all coming here to listen to all the Cosmos projects who have been building in this air market. And I also appreciate our guest speakers, Mr. Zaki and Mr. Sunny, to be here and, help or share their experiences like being OG in the space. But I'm sure like there are some people who might be new to the Web3 industry. So probably a round of introductions. Maybe we can start with Zaki.
Hello, my name is Zaki Mainan. I've been working on Cosmos for about 9 years, which is a billion years basically in blockchain. I'm the co-founder of a project called Sommelier Finance, which uses Cosmos tech to power an Ethereum application, which is generating, which allows for very sophisticated DeFi strategies. A number of our strategies have been very successful and have been offering very high yields. TVL has been growing about 30% a month. But I work on many different things in Cosmos, from helping launch the native USDC yesterday to also launching the liquid staking module yesterday. Let's see, I work on Celestia, I work on Agoric, I do a billion other things.
Hey guys, hello, my name is Sunny. I'm one of the co-founders of Osmosis, which is a DEX app chain focused on being the best interchain. Oh, that's better. Focused on being the best interchain DEX. Have been also working on Cosmos for a while, not quite as long, but since 2017, and just excited to push the bounds of the Cosmos tech and stack in order to build the best exchange product possible.
Hello everyone, I'm Akhil. I'm the founder of Dojima Network. Dojima Network is building an omni-chain layer one, trying to bring together the whole Web3 ecosystem onto one unified layer. And we're really close to accomplishing that. So we just need to follow our social channels and you can see the updated website. So you get to know what exactly are we doing. We just really check that out. My name is Vikram and I am co-founder at HyperSign. We're building a cross-chain identity infrastructure. The goal is very simple to how can verified users. First is to verify users on chain. And the second goal is to bring these users seamlessly move across these different chains. And for that, we have different toolings and create different infrastructure. And I'll start with the question. The first question goes for Zaki. This question have been the most asked question by all the most of the vendor program projects. Being an OG in the space, how do you navigate the challenges of fundraising during the bear market?
Yeah, I think without a doubt, access to capital for Cosmos projects, access to capital across the entire ecosystem and access to capital to Cosmos projects is enormously a challenge. It's definitely one of the, the sort of overall question has been the theme has been Cosmos liquidity. I would say in general, this is probably we're going through a phase of where the capital markets ecosystem and the narratives are somewhat against Cosmos. Is the people view the emergence of the Arbitrum orbit and the entire ETH L2 ecosystem as a real credible alternative competitor to realizing the app chain thesis without outside of Cosmos, in a way that doesn't really benefit Cosmos. People are very unclear about where in the Cosmos tech stack value accruals, what makes tokens valuable. We've also been struggling with a bunch of things that are very real. The Cosmos staking module is really inflexible from a tokenomics point of view. It doesn't give you a lot of tools and it worked well for us in 2019, 2020, 2021. And it, to a certain extent, has been working okay for Atom, but for virtually every other Cosmos chain, it's really been kind of a significant weakness in the ecosystem. Osmosis liquidity has been pretty terrible for the last year, also making it really hard for Cosmos chains to sort of succeed. There's definitely this sense of, that we've fallen behind in terms of users from Ethereum, etc. I mean, the biggest thing, I think all of this reality has been relatively obvious for, pretty much since Terra collapsed. And so the question has been more what do you do about it? What do we do about it is we have to grow the ecosystem. So, Sommelier has been very focused on, building an application that taps into the ETH user base. We're starting to take steps towards integrating and making Sommelier more part of Cosmos. And we want to bring the assets from our strategies and incorporate them more into Cosmos DeFi. So, that's one path to growth. The stuff that basically launched in the last 24 hours that I've been working on for, 2 years, which is Noble USDC, MetaMask snaps, the liquid staking module, are all designed to alleviate a lot of the core reasons, or at least test the hypotheses as to why Cosmos has struggled so much to grow compared to the ETH ecosystem. If your hypothesis is people want to be able to access apps from within MetaMask and access Cosmos within MetaMask, installing Kepler is too much of a barrier, then snaps will if the challenge is people don't want to bridge stablecoins from Ethereum because it is very expensive, Noble USDC over the next couple of months is going to alleviate that. If you're building an application in the DeFi ecosystem of Cosmos, capital is really constrained. The liquid staking module, sort of gives easy access to about, $400 million of staked Atom that could potentially become an ingredient. So fundamentally, what Cosmos must do to navigate the funding environment is grow.
So what do you recommend to the devs who are pitching now to convince for you to get investment? What something the builder program projects can do to
I mean, yeah, I think the biggest reality is you need to present a plausible plan for growth. It isn't entirely contingent on the ecosystem growing. The biggest problem that I see with most Cosmos projects is they tie their growth expectations to the ecosystem gets bigger, we can get bigger with the ecosystem. Ultimately, its growth is going to be created by projects that decide to go out and grow independently of the ecosystem. And that ultimately is what makes the ecosystem better.
Thank you very much. Next question is for Sen. And this is also as a pain point, I see many developers using Cosmos as security builds and product. But in the end, they don't launch in Cosmos ecosystem. And the reason being, most of them, they just say liquidity is missing. Since you are, I consider Osmosis as one of the biggest liquidity hub in Cosmos, at least personal perspective. So what is your viewpoint that Cosmos could, from your I understood what Zaki said. Probably you can also add on to that, what Cosmos need to do to attract these developers back to and launching in Cosmos.
Yeah. So I guess similarly to Ethereum, it's what does it mean to launch in Ethereum? What does it mean to launch in Cosmos? Do you have to be branded as Cosmos? Are you as part of the IBC network, part of Cosmos? If you look at something like Celestia, they're not very loud about their Cosmos branding, but they're launching, and the only bridge that they have is IBC, and Osmosis is going to be the primary DEX for TL liquidity. With DYDX, similarly, Osmosis will probably be the primary DEX for the new DYDX token once it converts. And so I think this is kind of what Zaki was saying, was that at the end of the day, it's not about needing to call yourself, we are even Terra was another example. Despite not being very loud about Cosmos branding, Osmosis was the primary DEX for UST. And so I think the goal that what we need to be pushing is like get people using the Cosmos SDK stack because it is the best stack, and then people will, use IBC to move assets around. And this is what Zaki was saying. Like, we don't need to overemphasize like, oh, this is the Cosmos ecosystem and like draw these strict lines. It's like as the stack is used, as more people use these products, the entire ecosystem will grow. Like, and you can see something similar with like the EVM, right? Like, even though, let's say something like Avalanche never called itself part of Ethereum, given that they were so EVM focused, the network effects of the improvement that like the developers that they onboarded into the EVM and stuff, that like, bring, the rising tide lifts all boats. And like, I think that's what we need to just focus on is like the pitch for Cosmos to developers needs to be that like, this is the best tech stack to build. And these are the things that you can only do using this tech stack that you can't do using any other tech stack today.
Thank you. I would also like to know, from Akhil, like you are building also using Cosmos SDK. So what got you into like using Cosmos SDK? And how do you like see Dojima as being bring liquidity? Because liquidity is like what the whole discussion is about into Cosmos. You can share your viewpoint as a developer. So why we are using Cosmos? Cosmos is really modular and it's very developer friendly to build applications on top of Cosmos. And in our architecture, we're using a multi-layered architecture. On top of Cosmos SDK, we are implementing an execution layer where developers could deploy their protocols and get the liquidity from all of the connected chains. And we're using this Hermes layer, which is basically our Cosmos SDK layer, to fetch the liquidity not just from EVM-based chains, but even account-based chains like Bitcoin network and all other account-based systems. So any network would easily be integrated onto our Hermes layer, and we have implemented various ways to fetch all of those liquidity data and payload data, all of that from all of these ecosystems on one unified layer. We're trying to bring together all the data, all the liquidity, and from all of these connected chains onto one unified layer. That's the main goal at Dojima Network. And I'd like to ask Zaki one question on that. So I keep following you on Twitter and you keep mentioning about Cosmos ecosystem needing different layers or different protocols to improve the overall Cosmos ecosystem. And we ourselves, we already built the IBC module from our Hermes chain to bring in liquidity and protocols from the Cosmos ecosystem. So at a macro level, so where do you see the Cosmos ecosystem going, and what do you think is needed for the growth of Cosmos ecosystem? Like we both observed that that you talk about different layers that needs to be paid. Some of them have already been said. Would love to get your perspective on more.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the biggest weakness right now about the Cosmos ecosystem is there is frankly a lack of applications. There are like, I can only really think of like basically like Osmosis's like we have a couple, we have Osmosis, we have Crescent, we have a few other spot decks like Shade and extra. So we have like a decent spot decks ecosystem. Kujira has like this entire stack of multiple applications that have been really successful, but like with the exception of Calculated Finance, hasn't really there's no other version of those applications outside of the Kujira ecosystem. And it does feel a little bit siloed off. And so one of the biggest, so when you think about like the layers of the system, so like you have like basics like asset issuance, so like stablecoin issuance, liquid staking asset issuance. Great. You need spot dexes. You need perp dexes. So we have Levana now, DYDX soon. Levana is like especially relevant and is deployed across multiple chains. We have some lending protocols, probably not the right ones or not all of them. They're not super flexible, especially compared to like if you look at like sort of the next generation of lending on ETH with like protocols like Ajna and Morpho Blue, which are all much more flexible than like the Aave and Compound. Osmosis from like a spot DEX point of view with the like V16 upgrade and concentrated liquidity, like has like essentially like caught up with like state of the art ETH ecosystem spot DEXs. But like very few other parts of the application stack in Cosmos, and especially the things that we need to like consume the liquidity that's been made available with the liquid staking module. Like, what is going to absorb this $400 million? Like, $400 million of liquidity is there. Where does it go? That's a huge missing piece to bringing in users. And if you are able to show investors, user numbers, TVL numbers that are up only, I mean, what are people looking at with friend tech right now? They're like, okay, every day what gets tweeted is TVL up number go up, user number go up. That's a very easy narrative to then sell from an investment point of view. What do people know about Sommelier? They're like, TVL number go up.
Got it. I'm just trying to summarize on myself. One thing is that the existing liquidity which is present, it needs to be consumed in some different forms. The basic economy has to rotate. If the circular economy will rotate if we have more number of dApps.
But until yesterday, the entire dApp ecosystem was fighting over maybe $30 million of liquidity, right? Now there's $400 million of liquidity to fight over. That's a 10x of available liquidity to fight over. But the apps, and app builders, were the ecosystem, this is a positive feedback loop. If people are successful at going from fighting over that $30 million of liquidity to tapping into this $400 million and start moving the dial, that feeds on itself.
The next question is a little bit on the regulation side, and this is for my project mostly. And it goes to signing first, but then Zaki, you can change anytime. You can see regulatory bodies are now trying to regulate in different shape and forms. And then there is a aspect of identity coming in. So as a builders, I do understand your perspective. I've been observing what you talk. From the liquidity side, we don't want the liquidity to not move into ecosystem, right? For instance, but then the regulations are coming. So what's your thought process around it? How the community would react to that? Whether adopt or not adopt? So what shall we build in or send it? Things like that. So that you can.
I'm of the opinion that we should be building as decentralized base protocols as possible. That's part of why, I think the Cosmos SDK stack is so enticing right now, because out of all the app chain stacks, it actually gives you a decentralized validator set. DYDX today is effectively a centralized non-custodial exchange, and they want to turn into a decentralized exchange, and moving their perps DEX onto the Cosmos SDK is the way of doing that. And so, I think that for osmosis, today the chain is pretty decentralized, but there's a lot of layers of the stack that are not quite decentralized yet. And we want to figure out how do we decentralize all of that, right? The front ends, for example, the indexers, the RPC providers, and I think what's cool is in Cosmos, we actually have a surprisingly high amount of what I call DWeb projects, decentralized web products. And I think that we should be using these to create a cohesive stack, a Vercel-like experience to deploy truly decentralized applications. So using Akash for decentralized compute, keeping your code on Gitopia and owned and managed by on-chain governance, using Lava for RPC network, using Kai for data storage, right? And then one of the nice things is that with having a decentralized validator set, you can also demand that your validators do more. So they should be the ones running indexers and, even web servers potentially, right? And the goal here is if you can build a fully decentralized system, you want to make something that's unstoppable at the base layer and then the regulation gets pushed to higher layers, right? At the user interface layer. But then, you imagine there'll be many, many user interfaces that can all figure out how to comply to local jurisdictions. I feel today, everyone is trying to build one size fits all that complies to the US regulatory system. And we need to avoid, get away from that. And yeah.
Yeah, I would also say that in the early days of Cosmos, a lot of thought was, put into how to do proof of stake in a compliant way, how to do, at least from a US securities and actually in many other jurisdictions. One of the challenges is kind of as a crypto founder is the need to oscillate between energy spent on decentralization and energy spent on growth. It's I think it's one of the hardest things, and but it is a thing that we have, as Sunny is saying, we have real opportunities to try to do things differently than what the Ethereum ecosystem has done. And the Ethereum ecosystem has created in many ways a lot of different entry points for regulators to, one of the things that I just think about in the Ethereum ecosystem, and is a challenge from a sommelier point of view, is, when you sign something, you don't interacting with a smart contract on Ethereum, you have no idea what you're signing and what it will do, right? And that means that you are very dependent on the front end that it comes from the product. You trust that the thing that you're signing is going to not steal all your money because you went to you went to Uniswap or you went to Sommelier. That's the trust model. We always designed Cosmos, we launched the Cosmos SDK with no front end, right? In the Cosmos Hub with no front end. There was no official staking interface, nothing. There were only unofficial interfaces. And we put the security in that transaction signing layer to say, hey, that's how we'll make sure people's money doesn't get stolen. I think those are the kinds of things that we started on the journey. We've continued to make investments in Cosmos. We have something coming called side mode textual, which is really a plain text explanation of this transaction is a swap. Enforce, is going to swap this much Osmo for at least this much Atom. And it should say that on your ledger. It should say that in your wallet. You shouldn't rely on the front end. These kinds of things then open up more possibilities for decentralization. And because we can still, our base layer is not ossified in the way that the EVM base layer is, there are opportunities for deploying decentralization. So as you find product market fit and you start to scale, those are the times that then we start thinking about, okay, what more can we do from a decentralization point of view? How much of the control over the application can we actually push out of an organization?
Is it right to understand that the education of the government to understand the lower level protocol? Because the way help the user.
I will say that my point of view is governments will be open to education after they've exhausted themselves on enforcement. That is the reality. So you have to build censorship resistant protocols. DeFi will not exist until governments first really try to get rid of it and then fail. In the same way that cryptocurrencies only existed when governments were okay, we kind of realized that we can't make this go away.
Got it. Thank you very much. There is one last question. This is more on technically Akhil needs to ask you, but I will just add on to that. So you see developers, when they launch on one chain, I see that happening again and again. So there will be hype for some new protocols. They will launch it, but then they end up not having the right liquidity that they wanted for their protocol to survive. It's a basic mathematics that goes on every DeFi project. Now the issue is to move this protocol from one particular chain to different chain is a huge task for the whole team. Do you think cross-chain can help there in some way? Let's say selective chains through IBC could possibly help there, or you see there could be a different way of designing it?
No, I mean, it's an enormously valid question because this seems it's very connected to the failure or success mode, right? There's some reason why we think that Friend-Tech's liquidity is improving, because they like launched on Base. Okay. And like Base has had this like significant injection of liquidity that has come into it, right? Protocols had more success because they would launch on Arbitrum because there were billions of dollars of liquidity sloshing around Arbitrum. And like to this day, like getting liquidity to bridge and then stick around. Like we've seen with the Say go-to-market, like, they were very successful in getting tens of millions of dollars bridged into Say. It just had nowhere to go. And then it was bridged back out, right? Having access to things like Squid and Axelar and Wormhole and IBC and, all of these things create new possibilities for go-to-markets within the Cosmos ecosystem. Getting the go-to-market right, though, is super hard. The lesson is like, you keep launching until you get it right. But also it requires like kind of like rigorously looking as a founder at like what is failing, like what isn't working. We have this, one of the things that I think has been good is the Cosmos PD chat. I don't know how many people are in it, but the Cosmos PD chat has actually become like a really good place for people to share like what is and isn't working from a growth.
Got it. So these were like most of the questions that I had collected from the projects in the Mentorship program. But I will open now questions to the audience. Some of my friends from Kive and Octopus Network, they had 2 questions for you.
So yeah, I have a duty to ask a question relevant to our work at Octopus, of course. I've personally been caught in the middle of this online on Twitter a little bit because I'm very passionate about IBC not just being a Cosmos thing. I'd love to hear either or both your opinions, all 3 your opinions, your opinion as well, on IBC interacting with other entities, because obviously extending the base connectivity of Tau requires a little bit more patience, security exceptions. I'll talk more about that when I'm discussing Octopus's kind of point of view of IBC, but I'd really like to see more from adjacent ecosystems that have similar need, or like if I had to bring applications online, and also struggling a little bit with this sort of liquidity dance of things just showing up and then they pull right.
I have a pretty loose definition of IBC. Some people think IBC means you need these like specific light client proofs between chains and all this stuff. I'm much more of opinion of IBC is a set of, I guess I approach IBC more from like from the app developer's standpoint. And for me, it's like IBC is, can I use the same interface to talk to one chain as I do to another, right? And this is why like things like the fact that so many bridge projects are using the Cosmos SDK, so you have like Axelar, Wormhole, Dojima, right? Like you have all the, it makes it nice because then for us as an application, we only have to talk IBC to them, and then they like do the necessary work to like act like a translator for us. And this is why I'm also excited for things like Polymer and stuff, which will like make it so, the problem with like, at least with Axelar and Wormhole, is that it is very permissioned. You have to like get their validators to run this stuff. With something like Polymer, it'll be like, get the permissionless value of IBC with the same application semantics, but working across like, I can talk to all of these different chains. So I'm excited for more things to start using the IBC application level standard. So, I'm also hopefully pushing like Hyperlane to like try to be as close to some of the IBC app standards as possible. So that way, they are growing into the preferred bridge of the Celestia ecosystem right now. And so making it so we can talk over Hyperlane the same way as we can talk over IBC would be, or normal IBC would be very nice.
I think that like ultimately like the value of IBC comes from that like ability to like get applications quickly onboarded into your ecosystem. So like if your application supports IBC, can you have something like Squid enabling swaps into and out of your ecosystem like really quickly? Could we use IBC to like make Squid and Axelar be able, could you like, you essentially, if you have Axelar Squid compatibility, you get like Axelar bridging for free, wormhole bridging for free. Some of the application layers that are existing on top of like wormhole, bridge, hyperlane, and IBC native applications all can like sort of come into the ecosystem for free. I do think that like teams like Octopus and Composable have done like years of work trying to like make IBC work on like build those IBC pieces, and now the IBC application layer is actually starting to become richer, where there are more things at the IBC application layer. And the question is I don't know as much about the dynamics of like the Polkadot or Near ecosystem, but like how do you make it so that the IBC application layer sort of also comes along?
Hey, thanks for the panel. This is a couple-part question. So, Sonny, you mentioned that there's interest in what this tech enables you to do that other tech doesn't. So, as a builder, there's been a bit of debate I've heard recently between do you build a Pos on Altim. It seems like a lot of that debate rolls out into Liquidity, and that kind of rolls out into bridges. So the questions are, what do you think this enables versus other tech and other stacks? And what's the landscape on bridging, and when do you think like optimal bridge and which one that will be that will kind of bridge those investors?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Liquidity, what are the capabilities? What can we do with the Cosmos SDK that you can't do? I think right now, one of the most powerful ones is the amount of customization you have on things like fee markets and block space construction. So we designed this thing a few years ago called ABCI++, which is basically a way for your consensus or your application to be more opinionated about how block production happens. And with this, we can make decisions like, hey, on a DEX, we want to make cancellations free, for example, right? That is something you could do where you need to have more fine-grained control over how gas markets work on your chain, how, we want to maybe put cancellations automatically at the beginning of the block rather than in the middle of the block. So you can like take the transactions, scan over them, reorder the transactions. We worked with Skip to build this thing called POB, Protocol Owned Builder, which is basically saying, hey, instead of having Flashbots style auctions at some other layer of the protocol, you can actually build it natively into the protocol and make sure that all the revenues go to your other cool stuff you can do with the fees market is like in Osmosis today, you can pay gas fees in almost any token you want. You can pay, because it would be silly if you needed OSPO to pay fees, right? You can pay in ETH, USDC, Tether, Bitcoin, Atom, whatever you want. And the fact of the matter is the Cosmos SDK stack is just the only one that's today customizable enough to do that. Like, I asked Coinbase engineers why they didn't add USDC as a fee token in Base, and they're like, we don't know how. The OP stack is just like so inflexible that you can't do that. And so I think that just goes to show how like, so I think the gas market, the fee market, and block space stuff is one thing. I think one of the things that I've been spending a lot of time on recently is like account abstraction standards, but that are baked in more natively into the chain than the standards that are currently being pushed in the EVM, where you can actually, take an existing EOA and convert it into a smart account or like a smart contract account, basically. And so, given that most people today still onboard as EOAs, the reason I haven't switched to a smart contract wallet on Ethereum yet is twofold. One, there's so many different competing smart contract wallets, but two, I have an EOA that I've been using for like 5-6 years. It has not just my tokens and NFTs, yeah, I can transfer those, but it has like my DAO memberships as part of this. It has my future airdrop potentials as part of this, right? I don't want to change my address. And so by making a backwards compatible account abstraction system, that's how you can do that. And I think the third big capability I'm really excited about is just things to do with privacy. I think that, you look at the projects that are like doing cool stuff with privacy, most of them tend to be in the Cosmos ecosystem. You have Namada, you have Anoma, you have Secret Network, you have, they all are taking like different approaches to privacy, but I think usually the thing is to do new interesting privacy stuff, you usually need to experiment with new cryptography, and the EVM does not make that easy for you to do. But with the Cosmos SDK, it's very easy to add new cryptography primitives to do this sort of experimentation. And also like making it easy. One of the things that we're working on at Osmosis right now is making it easier to add privacy primitives to CosmWasm, which is the smart contracting framework. So basically, with like an extra line or two of code, you should be able to turn certain state variables in your contracts private, but with like as minimal overhead as possible for the developers. So those are some of the ways that I think that like the capabilities I think the Cosmos SDK provides that you won't get in an EVM today, at least. Oh, sorry. The last one was, like I mentioned earlier, you have a decentralized validator set. You can force them to do more things, right? Like one of the other things that we're doing is a decentralized Oracle, where, instead of relying on centralized Oracle providers, we can say, hey, so this is actually something Terra did, was they required all of their validators to run oracles and provide them in the as a decentralized Oracle for the chain for how to do the mint burn system. They did it using transactions. What's nice is today with ABCI++, you can actually make it so you have guaranteed Oracle updates on a per block basis. If you look at a lot of the complexity of GMX today, they spend a lot of time dealing with Chainlink Oracle lag, but you can kind of avoid that issue completely by having these like in protocol provided price oracles, or in protocol, like, validator provided indexers and routing servers and stuff like that. So leaning on your decentralized validator to do more things is another one.
Talking about the privacy side, and as a developer, so when we were looking at the current signature schemes, one of the for Zk snarks you need to implement baby jub. Now for us in Hyperside, it was actually easier to implement on the ID stack. So basically it's a modular, right? So you can actually define these use cases in different modules. So specifically for DID, we were able to implement the baby jub, which no other existing like ID frameworks have that. And there is a reason for that, because of like it goes through, it's not, it has to be like if you have to do it something in EVM, then you have to change a lot of code in the whole EVM layer where the smart contracts goes through. But in case of using Cosmos SDK, we only had to implement on the layer where the DID transaction goes through. Apart, which helps us now at like tooling compatibility with any other JavaScript based or Rust based stack frameworks. Like you can choose whatever existing SDKs that you have, and you can write dates and issue credentials using those. So I just wanted to add on to, as a developer, like how it helped us. Probably you can also think from that side.
I just want to like unpack the like L2s equal liquidity meme, because it like, so the first thing I'll say is ETH L1 has liquidity. ETH L1 has liquidity. It has large numbers of sophisticated active counterparties on it. It has like custodians. It has exchanges. It has a wide variety of assets. It has deep pools of liquidity in both lending markets and decentralized exchanges. You can move large cap tokens in size over ETH L1 liquidity. So all of these things are very true. ETH L1 has lots of liquidity. Okay. Then there are some L2s that have substantial liquidity. Arbitrum, OP main chain, Mantle, Base. But we're very rapidly moving from a world of a small number of L2s to like dozens, hundreds of L2s. So that's going to get you into a place of significant liquidity fragmentation. So now the question is does the liquidity go with your apps? Because like in a world of 100, if you're like launching the 200th L2 on Ethereum, you are not getting any magic Ethereum L2 liquidity, because you are just tapping into the same fragmented liquidity that is being pulled in 200 different directions. So, which is like roughly the like reality of like launching a Cosmos SDK chain. So now you have to ask the question is like, is the liquidity tied to custodians and custodian support? Well, being an L2 doesn't inherently get you that much of an advantage there. Being an EVM gets you an advantage there. But like custodians are going to be struggling to support these hundreds of L2s in the same way that they've struggled to support Cosmos chains between the Cosmos Hub. Is the liquidity tied to MetaMask? Well, we're going to sort of find out about that. We'll see how MetaMask snaps work. Is the liquidity tied to what assets that you have available, how your DEX ecosystem works? All of that is undergoing a lot of change in Cosmos. Mostly, I feel like the building an ETH L2 gives you a liquidity advantage is a fairly unexamined idea, and mostly like a superficial meme that will we're going to see whether or not there are substantial counterexamples. We'll see how the DYDX chain launches. We'll see how the Barra chain launch goes. Like there may be substantial counterexamples to this whole and ultimately, I mean, what we really suspect is liquidity will go where the most compelling applications are. And if the Cosmos SDK, all the like privacy and ABCI++ functionality that Sunny was talking about is there, liquidity should follow the applications.
Cool. Thank you very much for coming here and speak to the Cosmos ecosystem in Singapore. Also, virtually to all the Builders Program participants. I really thank both of you.
Yeah. Thank you for having us.